Interesting. Yes, especially if you're going to be continuing to interact in the real world.
Yeah.
It's super important. Now, if we do get into the Matrix, that's where it becomes very interesting, but that's not for decades,
What
hopefully.
do you mean by that? Like, if we do get it, like actually
if we are
Matrix.
literally, like Black Mirror, you got the little tablet that just sticks into your head and you're in another world instantly.
Well, here's another thing with AI that I think does overlap with the Matrix. I was watching a little bit of his Joe Rogan interview.
Yeah.
And they talked a little bit about simulation theory. They didn't get too deep into it, but it intrigued me because I've been thinking a lot about how when we look at simulation theory, of course we're in a simulation. But it doesn't
walk me through that then.
It's not even a question.
Walk it through that.
Whether or not we're in a simulation.
Why do you say that?
Because
give me the theory.
Because
Back at it.
What up? What up? What up? What up? Another Founders Drive.
We are back in the car.
Yes, and we are here to talk about our drive, the drive of other founders, and what we've and what we've learned from these other founders too.
And also, like, what's happening this week?
Yeah.
You want to start there, maybe? What's going on this week?
Well, why don't you tell me? It sounds like you got something on your something on your mind.
No, I think just like some of our improvements, especially to like our agentic chat in our app, have been pretty cool.
Yeah, rattle them off. Talk to the people.
You know, just allowing people to see how the AI is thinking. We added that to Muse this past week, and being able to plan and then execute on really complex tasks. That was also added. And so if you're a premium member, check it out on Constance.com. You'll be able to do everything you can do on ChatGPT and Claude and more. With your content, with your ideas, and with your thoughts.
The really cool thing is that we've added this component in the ecosystem of Constance, and I think Constance has a very specific purpose, which is to provide the tools and the interface for digital entrepreneurs and content creators. And so having an AI agent becomes really powerful, and having that agentic capabilities becomes really powerful, because while that's becoming more accessible, I think the next step is how these tools fit in context of the things that we actually want to do, the things that we actually want to pursue. And that's a big reason to check that out. We've always had assistants in there, but I think the difference between an assistant and an agent is something that's going to become more pronounced.
Yeah.
Over the next months and few years.
Right now, it's almost like a hype word, a buzzword, right?
Agent.
Where everyone's like, yeah, make it agentic. Just make that thing, turn it agentic.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people, especially at some of these big companies, talk about just how much their leadership is pushing, like, everything needs to be an LLM, even if it doesn't make sense for it to be an LLM call. They're like, yeah, make it use an LLM in some way, shape, or form.
So how would you describe the difference between an assistant and an agent? And then maybe we can talk a little bit about this whole global push for LLMs and agents in the workplace.
Well, I think a lot of that push is honestly just like non-technical leaders chasing the next shiny object. So, like, that aside,
shiny object syndrome. Yes.
Aside from that, like, to me, an assistant is kind of the lowest level of autonomy that you can give a process running with natural language. And so it's going to have the ability to do really surface level things. It's going to be able to do everything a large language model can do, but it probably doesn't have, or, you know, for sure it doesn't have any of the tools or the actions to be able to take and do stuff outside of its own system. So, you know, maybe an assistant might have like web search tool and that might be it, but it's definitely not going to have the tools to go in actually perform actions. And so to me, when you get towards the agent side of things, you have a little bit more autonomy with that process, where it can then say, oh, you asked me to go post something, I can go post it. Or you asked me to, you know, generate an image and then do some research on it, or do some research and then generate an image. Oh, I can go do that.
So both sequentially and autonomously.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of there that like the more autonomy and the more tooling you can give to an assistant, the more agentic it becomes.
Yeah, I think a lot of the talk around AI is, it can get confusing because I think a lot of the concepts are pretty abstract and there's not really tight definitions. We're looking at Sam Altman as a founder in this episode, exploring a little bit, uncovering a little bit more than what's on the surface layer. I'll be the first person to say I don't know his every move. I haven't followed him to the T like I have other founders, but obviously what he's been doing commands a lot of respect. And this is not to say I don't know anything about him. Obviously, we know who Sam Altman is. We know the high level of his career, but just exploring that and examining that a little bit more feels right at this moment. But my main point is that a lot of these terms seem very fuzzy. Like when I hear people talk about AGI, I've yet to come up with a clear definition of AGI.
Yeah.
I was watching Sam Altman's TED Talk recently, and even he had a hard time pinning it down. It was more of a general direction of this thing is smart and it's continuing to get more smart and can do human level things, but it still seems more directional in the way that he uses the term as opposed to this is what AGI is.
Some of that feels strategic to me.
Okay.
And just listening to some of the talks that he's given and the interviews he's been on, it definitely feels like some of that stuff is making sure that he can keep his promises to the board, right? And making sure that as he's saying to his employees and then to the world that like, hey, we're gonna achieve AGI, or we're X, days away or weeks away or months away from doing this, that it's always feeling like it's just out of reach. You know what I mean? Like it's always just beyond what they have today, but they're gonna continue working on it.
In the TED Talk that I was listening to, he did say that AGI, people would claim that we've arrived at AGI at different points.
Yeah.
And so he's like, some people might say, hey, this is AGI. Other people might say, this is AGI. The interviewer said, it already seems generally intelligent. I can ask it about anything. Granted, we're more in the, like what you described earlier, that's more of an assistant role where it's answering questions for you, but it's not doing anything autonomously or on its own.
Yeah.
But it is something to think about where it's like, okay, if there's not a clear definition for AGI, then why does it have so much hype? Is it one of those things where we'll know when we see it? Is it one of those things where it is just fluff for investors, the company? Or is it, we just don't know, we're trying to figure it out, and we know that this thing is getting smarter, but we don't know how smart it's getting?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of all of them. I just feel like it's weighted a little bit more towards the marketing and the strategy than it is like an actual tangible solution, because you're always going to get somebody that's like, oh, well, it failed my PhD course, and so it's not generally intelligent. There's always going to be something to strive for, which I think is good, especially when you're setting the vision for a company and you are the face of some of this new technology, of how the world is changing. Setting your goals and your sights beyond just what you know to be possible in the near, like even in the near term, I think is like a smart choice.
They say that it becomes really interesting because human level intelligence is not the same as artificial general intelligence.
Why do you say that?
Because I don't think humans are generally intelligent.
That's a hot take.
Well, I don't think it's that hot of a take. I mean, I think humans, we have the capability to do a lot of different things, but we have to go and, like, people I think generally specialize. Like, I can't go and do what a doctor does tomorrow. I would need intensive training to become intelligent in that space, to develop my reasoning ability in that space. And so, like, we have the capacity to do a lot of things, but even then that's limited.
I think that might be the difference between like generally intelligent versus not, is like, if you have the capacity, if I gave you the right resources, could you do that job? And so the fact that you just inherently have a feedback loop present that you don't have to like monitor necessarily, where it's just like you're going to interact with the world, you're going to then get new inputs, and then you're going to be able to adjust your actions based on that in a way that you can actually progress intelligently. I think is like the where they're saying like, oh, humans actually are intelligent in that way, whereas we have trouble showing a computer how to do that.
Okay, but I am willing to bet that you could think of 5 people that don't fit that description that you just gave of intelligence and general intelligence.
Yeah, there's definitely some other factors that go into how productive or how cognizant people are of their abilities.
Well, like
But
my main thing is that it seems like a very fuzzy term, and I would like to explore it a little bit and say, okay, is there a little bit more concrete that we can put in this thing that we're talking about, or is it even possible to do that? Because I think another thing too is like when I think of human intelligence, there's more to human intelligence than just the verbal language and reasoning.
That's true.
There's a book that came out a while ago, and it talked about the multiple facets of intelligence that people have, like kinesthetic intelligence.
Right.
That's one thing that is probably the lagging intelligence in this whole AI race. But they had other ones, verbal, which is the whole LLM.
Yep.
There's mathematical, there's spatial, and so to me, it's like the human aspect of intelligence isn't quite matched up with the AGI proclamation. I think that they're slightly different.
I think we have talked about this before on a previous Founders Drive, but the amount of intelligence that you have, basically given all of your senses, you can be intelligent in any of those, right? And so the question then becomes like, is some of that stuff wasted energy? Because humans have to do it, but a computer doesn't have to do that stuff. The computer doesn't really have to have spatial awareness, unless of course it's, Elon's new, robot. And so maybe it's better that it doesn't have that, or maybe it's worse. I mean, to interact in the real world, you would think spatial awareness is important, or, kinesthetics.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just like processing power that the LLMs or these assistants or these agents don't need.
It depends on the task.
Sure.
That's a big thing, because when I think of that, it's the whole baby with the bathwater thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if what is stuff that we can get rid of and what are the things that we need to keep.
When we're merging with technology.
Yeah. And there's probably an argument both ways, but just kind of taking a side right now, I lean more on the side of it is probably more important than we realize.
Interesting. Yes, especially if you're going to be continuing to interact in the real world.
Yeah.
It's super important. Now, if we do get into the Matrix, that's where it becomes very interesting, but that's not for decades, hopefully.
What do you mean by that? Like, if we do get it, like actually
if we are
Matrix.
literally, like Black Mirror, you got the little tablet that just sticks into your head and you're in another world instantly.
Well, here's another thing with AI that I think does overlap with the Matrix. I was watching a little bit of his Joe Rogan interview.
Yeah.
And they talked a little bit about simulation theory. They didn't get too deep into it, but it intrigued me because I've been thinking a lot about how when we look at simulation theory, of course we're in a simulation. But it does
walk me through that then.
It's not even a question.
Walk it through that.
Whether or not we're in a simulation.
Why do you say that?
Because
given the theory.
Because this is probably not what people is meant by it, but I think it's important. But we are in a simulation because our brains are in a closed, dark space, and what it's doing is it's simulating what's going on the outside. And so everybody is running their own simulation, their own model of what reality looks like. There's a saying somebody said one time, if you were to trade perceptions with somebody else, it would be the craziest trip ever. It would be unlike anything you've ever experienced.
You wouldn't think reality is the same.
Exactly. You'd be like, this is insane. I thought that thing was red, but your red might not look like somebody else's red.
That's
The
interesting.
experience of it might not be the exact same.
Yeah.
And the extent of that, we don't necessarily know. But the premise being that we are all running our own simulations. And when I think of AI, it has to be able to run accurate simulations that model the world, so that way its reasoning and its intelligence can be accurate. And it has to be able to adapt. It has to be nimble in its adaptations. I mean, ours is so quick that we think that what we're seeing as our interface for reality, one, encapsulates everything that there is in the objective world, which it doesn't.
Right.
And then two, that it's happening in real time, which it's not.
Yeah.
There's a lag
processing there. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, that's a big thing, which is, I think, the reason why LLMs have been such a huge, we've seen such a huge advancement in artificial intelligence using LLMs, is because they're prediction engines. And at our core, we're prediction engines, because it's not, for people, it's not metabolically efficient enough. We're not metabolically efficient, or the process isn't metabolically efficient to do everything without some type of predictive mechanism.
Right.
It's almost like we almost have to guess and check, because it's faster and it allows us to run more with more efficiency. And with an LLM, you see an LLM, it's predicting, and it has, and the premise is that with a ton of data and a ton of predictions, we can train it so that way its predictions are much more accurate given a specific context.
Yeah.
With AGI, and that's really where we're missing a benchmark. With AGI, it's okay, well,
what is the actual test? What's the eval for AGI?
Yeah, and right now we're taking tests, but everybody knows that tests only go so far in the real world.
Yeah, especially when you know what the test is before you take it.
Yeah.
It's very easy to overfit for that test.
Exactly.
So
with AGI, general intelligence, it's a huge rabbit hole in terms of, and I think there's just a lot of conversations that we're gonna see collide over the years. But what's fascinating is and remarkable is what we've been able to see so far.
Yeah, and Sam's been at the forefront of that.
Yeah.
With AI, I don't think it's been a very smooth road. It sounds, when you talk about the pure engineering talent and the pure engineering breakthroughs that they've been able to make, that all sounds freaking awesome. But then there's a lot of drama around, closed AI, the for-profit versus the non-profit. Right now, the whole meta poaching of his talent. There's so much stuff around all the stuff that his engineering team has been able to do that, so I feel like some of it does distract or take away from the fact that they were the first ones to launch. They've been in the market for so long with this leading technology. It's just very interesting. And then how, as a founder, you manage all of those things, all those spinning plates.
Yeah. So I think it's probably helpful to give a little bit of context around who Mr. Altman is. He is somebody who, I believe he grew up in the Silicon Valley Bay Area.
I think so.
Went to Stanford, dropped out, ended up founding a company called Looped, which was a location-based social network.
Yep.
And
I believe that got sold, right?
Yeah, it got sold. I think he made a nice made some nice change off of that, and ended up working at Y Combinator, I believe, as a partner, and then eventually got promoted through the ranks and became the CEO or the president of Y Combinator. And
for a while too.
Yeah. And Y Combinator is it's a startup accelerator, an early stage investment company over in the Bay Area, for people that aren't familiar. And they have invested in some of the most well-known, well-recognized, and some of the most successful tech companies over the last 20 years. It was founded in 2005 by Paul Graham, which we can get into him in a little bit. But Sam Altman, while he was there, saw a lot of technology, saw a lot of companies, and he had a lot of opportunities to invest both directly through YC, and I think he also had his own investment firm while he was there.
Okay.
And he eventually moved from YC to OpenAI as the full-time CEO. And so OpenAI he founded with Elon Musk, along with a few other co-founders. And the mission was that they were going to create OpenAI, like it was a nonprofit that was going to be with the mission of making open, like a safe artificial intelligence
For everybody.
Yeah. So there's a history not only in the company that he's leading right now, but also in the Y Combinator space, the investment space, which I think played a lot to all of the things that he learned about how to navigate this space. I think every move that he's making right now is informed by his experience as, one, a founder, two, somebody that was an investor, and three, somebody who created this company, OpenAI.
Yeah, you get a lot of value having interviewed thousands of companies, worked with thousands of companies, and seeing them go through the Y Combinator cohorts, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and then also you get to know kind of like what is the leading edge of tech.
Yeah.
The companies that you're funding are probably trying to build stuff that the world hasn't seen before, and so you get almost like a first chance at, oh, how are they building this? Why is it, how is it going to be beneficial to people? And then, like, what are their chances of success? To the point where then he can very clearly pick, oh yeah, like OpenAI is a spot where I need to be because that's where the world is moving.
Yeah. Yeah. He with AI had it seemed like that was the thing that was going to be the biggest mover.
Yeah.
And so he appropriately picked that spot. What a lot of controversy has arisen though, because then it was a nonprofit. Now it's a for-profit company.
Yeah, which has very big implications on the mission of the people that work there and the goals in which you set for the team.
You said implications.
Yes.
Okay, how do you parse that?
Well, I think if you're a nonprofit company, you're going to make certain decisions around open sourcing your software, open sourcing your models, and generally allowing people to use this stuff without paying.
What's interesting is Meta has probably been more open with their AI. Google has been more open with their AI than OpenAI.
Yes, exactly.
This whole revolution was largely accelerated by the paper that was released by the Google team, the Attention is All You Need paper, that basically democratized this new way of organizing neural networks.
Transformers.
Yep. And when you look at Meta, they put out the Llama models, and those are open source models that
you can run locally.
And those have been huge, but I don't know exactly what OpenAI has put out.
Well, so for me, like, obviously they have their paid offerings and they have some free options as well, but it's just like, the weird part about it is, like, if you say you're nonprofit, be nonprofit. If you say you're for profit, be for profit.
Well,
like, I don't think that's an issue.
It's a capped profit model right now.
Sure, but I don't think choosing one is the issue. I think it's the flip-flopping is the issue, to me at least.
Well, I think if at this point, so a capped model is kind of bullshit in the sense that the capped model is them saying investors are capped out at this amount of profit that they can receive.
Okay.
Before, and then when they hit that cap, the rest goes back into the company and we reinvest that.
Okay.
Which it's not really any different than a for-profit company. Like, there are different classifications in for-profit companies, but this it's not a legal thing. They just kind of said, hey, we're capping
these
our
are the
profits.
rules
that we're imposing on ourselves to make sure that we stick with our initial mission.
That's interesting. I don't know where the caps are. Hopefully it's, multiples for their investors and not just getting your money back.
It is multiples.
Okay,
I don't know
good.
what the specific multiples are.
Sure.
But the whole idea of OpenAI being a for-profit company when it was initially chartered to be a nonprofit, and they fundraised off of that premise, and were able to make a lot of strategic moves and decisions off of that premise.
Yep.
Is, I think, cause for concern, because I think when I look at Sam Altman, he says the right things. He's a very good conversationalist. Yeah. He claims to have values that align with what I think a lot of people care about. Creativity. He's smart in I would say, in articulating how there's a lot of opportunity with AI. But I think the actions, there's been more than one questionable action that has raised some eyebrows. And not even just on his part, but on people around him. For instance, when he got fired as the CEO.
Yeah, there was like some kind of mutiny.
Well, they said that he was not always forthcoming and clear in his communications as the CEO on the first time. But then the people, which I think is important to note, the people said, hey, if you're getting rid of Sam, then you're getting rid of us.
Yeah.
And so they reinstated him as CEO, and we're here today. Any sense, any takeoff isn't always going to be smooth, clear, but it is something to know when we're looking at like the character of the person, especially in his position right now.
Especially because, a lot of those board members, like, I don't know their history. Maybe they're like brand new to the world of being on a board and stuff like that, but it felt like they had some pretty strong opinions on the stuff that Sam was saying. And I think some of those interactions have been backed up by other people doing research and looking into the whole, allegations. I don't want to say allegations, but like the drama, I guess, that's been happening around OpenAI. I just recently saw a whole video on someone doing an interview around, like, I think it was a book she wrote on Sam Altman and the rise of OpenAI and the communications within around, how people feel like every time they meet with Sam, it's he's going to say what he thinks you want to hear. And so if you meet with 100 different people, you're going to have 100 different opinions and 100 different, 100 different opinions where it's 100 different viewpoints.
So Sam Altman is ChatGPT. Or ChatGPT is Sam Altman.
I wonder how much of that is intentional. I think a lot of it probably is.
Yeah.
Versus, if it's just like, oh, I just think that's how I should be running my company, is telling the smart people in the room, the PhD people, what they want to hear.
Well, I don't know how I feel about that. Because I think I know the interview that you're referring to. The reason why I don't know how I feel about that is because if that's the complaint that people are making, then push back and hold them accountable when you're talking with them. Like, if somebody's saying what you want to hear and you don't feel like that's how he actually feels, or that's actually what he values, then dialogue about that. Talk about that.
There is a power dynamic there, of course, where you always feel weird calling out, let's say, your boss, especially if you feel like you've caught them in a hypocritical situation. So there's definitely that.
But I think that's on. We weren't in the room, but I think that there should be the space to say, like, I think that the onus of the person interacting with him who felt that he wasn't saying what he actually felt, meant, etc., should also speak their mind.
Yeah.
Speak their mind. It's like, that's part of your responsibility.
I agree 100%. And that would then help us figure out, okay, what's actually driving Sam Altman.
Yeah. With that being said, though, this is kind of a detour, but what's interesting is, and we might have talked about this on here before, but there's a study done a while back, the Stanley Milgram experiment, where they did I believe that was the one, where they did it was like the learning study, where they shocked patients. this was done as a means to explore why people in Nazi Germany followed orders. They were just following orders. That's what everybody said.
Yeah.
And they want the person, I think it was Stanley Milgram, wanted to explore that even further. And he said, all right, we're going to design this study where we take this people off the street and say, hey, do you want to participate in this learning study? And we bring them into this lab where we put somebody in a white coat and we have somebody behind this door, this other room. And the job is for the person that we've brought off the street into the study is to help facilitate the learning. And long story short, they administered shocks whenever somebody gave the wrong answer. And whenever they wanted to stop, they would look to the person in the white coat and say, hey, can we stop? And then that person in the white coat was in on the experiment, and they would follow a script that basically said, hey, we need to continue with this.
The authority figure.
We need to continue shocking. And the person could leave at any moment, but they always looked to the person that was wearing their coat and deferred to them. And most people, a really, 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 really high amount,
astonishing high amount, yeah,
went through to lethal shocks.
Did not have the capability to walk away when they knew that they were harming another human.
Yeah.
Or at least they thought they were harming another human.
Yeah. So there is something wired in us, even though I feel like people should be able to speak their mind. Biologically, people just don't do it.
Yeah.
And that can just be proven in experiments over and over and over and over again. Not just following orders and just following orders.
Yeah.
So with that caveat in mind, I still think people should be speaking up and saying, hey, like, I think you're doing some weird shit. I don't really know what that is, and we have seen that with Elon Musk, he doesn't really feel like he has the answer to Sam Altman, so that's not the best example, but Ilya left, and there have been people that said, I don't really know where he stands on certain things, but
I think Elon, to his credit, he has tried to call him out and say, hey, when I founded the company with you, we had a certain mission. I gave you money because you told me that this was the mission. Yeah. And now you're saying it's no longer the mission. Well, where's my money?
Yeah.
And he goes, no, you can't get your money back. It's like, oh, there has been that too.
Yeah. And I don't know about Elon either, in the sense that Elon's not always crystal clear and with his motives, and they don't always align, but that did happen where there is a rift between them, and he's very vocal about what he's seeing unfold over at OpenAI. I think it's a big reason why he's really pushing for XAI and trying to run as fast as he can there. So I don't know. I think it's not always clear the motives, but it is
drives somebody.
But we have to pay attention, because I think this is something that affects all of us. Some of the good things that has been happening over at OpenAI is I think that they're one of the few major companies that are actually making their endpoints accessible.
Yep.
Via API. Although you could say with Meta, they basically put out the model and said, hey, you guys can go and build on your own.
Right.
XAI isn't doing any of that.
That's true. I think they probably will in the future. But for right now, it's mostly internal for Grok.
Yeah. Is there has there been anything that led you to believe that they'll do it in the future?
Yeah, I think as soon as you can start proving, especially with these evals, that Grok is the #1 model in the world for all these different kind of evals.
Yeah.
There's just a market there.
It seems like everything. It seems like by all accounts, Elon's been shutting down access to data, APIs, and everything concerning X.
Yeah, but I think specifically the APIs that run Grok, he'll have them open so that people, because there's a market there, and he's not shy when it comes to where the markets are.
I'd have to see it.
You think so?
Yeah, I'd have to see it, because I think that's something that he could already do.
I
know things take time in development, but I don't know how high it is on the priority list, and I just haven't seen that as the main thing. Although he is SpaceX just invested in XAI, and he's encouraging Tesla to invest in XAI.
Encouraging himself.
Which it's interesting because then there is a public investment in some of the technology around those AGI solutions. One thing that Sam Altman talked about, which kind of confused me, is he talked about an AGI being open and owned by everybody, and everybody having, shares in this AGI.
That's interesting.
So I don't know exactly what that means, if he's saying that as almost like a public investment or like an IPO type thing. But he did mention that.
That's interesting because it's one of those things. It's like, well, are you going to try and profit off of that? Or like, is it really going to be open? Like, how is that going to actually come into the world? And so,
well, he was saying it in a way where you could vote for any big decision concerning the AI, which leads me to believe that.
Is that like how I do it with my stock shares in IBM today?
I think
because sure, I can vote, but they don't give a crap about what I say.
Well, it's directly proportional to how much you own.
Exactly. So it's just going to be run by the people with the most shares. I guess that's open. I guess it's public, but
there's also like a lot of logistics that would need for that to happen. In order for that to happen, but he's also a big proponent of UBI. He also has started something called WorldCoin. Not super familiar, but it is in the crypto space. And something that's always fascinated me is the idea of overlaying artificial intelligence with blockchain technologies. In order to have something that can be have an AI that can be publicly controlled. I don't think that's as realistic right now, given the performance of application of the blockchain, and like we're just not there yet. But it is something that is pretty fascinating to me, where it's like, okay, we could have a decentralized artificial intelligence which is super smart and people can control.
It's a peer-to-peer system.
Exactly.
That'd be very interesting. Yeah, I don't know how that would actually work in terms of like the compute required, because I know it's very expensive. And maybe you're just like running your queries on other people's machines, which I guess you could do. It's just like a very interesting, like, I guess, project where you would want to have a distributed AI system that's smart enough to be able to answer questions, I guess, using like a peer's machine. That's very,
It'd be interesting if you had that AI system purchase its own tokens, so that way it had 51% of ownership stake in what it can and can't do, and it was almost like self-controlling itself.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, what level of autonomy you could give it, right? If it's like, hey, it installed itself on my machine, but like I don't want to contribute my node to the network. Delete yourself, and it goes, nope, I'm not doing that.
It's like, I'm sorry.
I'm staying alive, like a little HAL system.
We can't do that. I mean, that's something that we talked about, is with AGI, the only way that, this is a personal thought, the only way that we get to AGI is, one, if we give it the autonomy to go and actually learn how to self-update and self-learn and grow. But then two, we give it a survival instinct.
Yes. Something that's innate to pretty much every single living being on Earth. The fact that you have a survival instinct, your instinct is that you are going to try and survive no matter what the cost, is not necessarily evident with some of these AI models.
I think that when we look at that survival instinct, I think that our reasoning is a product of our survival instinct, not the other way around.
Right.
And so I think that what we're doing right now is surface level, in the sense that it's powerful, but it's also surface level in the sense that we have an ability to reason and understand the world through that reason that nothing known in the world today has, like that same ability.
But I also think it's the same kind of elusive definition of like what is a survival instinct. It's something that's just an instinct right now for us, and then we can kind of reason around like, or past it, where it's like, hey, like I'm doing this because I want to survive. But like, if you had to code a survival instinct, or if you had to, put that into a pattern for a transformer, like what is a survival instinct?
I think it almost has the way that it would look. This is us basically putting these ideas out there, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, these things have been thought about. There's this one study that went back a while back where they gave they ran a virtual simulation, and they gave these AI representations I can't remember the specifics of it. It was a few years ago, but essentially they gave it a survival instinct, and they adapted
To the environment that they were in.
It was like what it was it was AI's compete. It was competition, and they all had a goal, and that competition brought the best out in these AI agents. And man, I'm gonna have to look it up.
I think it was one where they actually had to like fight for food and like distribute the food amongst the AI agents.
Something like that. Do you remember the one with the characters, like the little blobs? And they were like,
I remember,
what they did,
seeing the simulations, but I don't remember the actual output of the paper.
Yeah, so they basically ran it, and then they visualized the AI agents, and we'll have to come back and address that another time because I don't want to fudge it up. But essentially, with the survival instinct, what I'm thinking in mind is a survival instinct that is what's gonna kill you and what's not, and you don't let that thing happen. So if it can be aware of its vitals, or if it have a body and it's like, hey, no matter what, do not die.
Yeah.
Almost like Brian Johnson. He's like, number one goal, don't die. Do whatever you can to protect your life. It's like, it needs that impulse if it wants to be as intelligent, if it wants to be AGI, generally intelligent.
Yeah, I guess, but like, what does that mean for an AGI to have a body, or to have a, an entity that it itself feels like it's alive? Because I think that's the other part of it. Is if you're gonna survive, it's like, what is surviving? Is the code surviving? Do I have consciousness where I feel like I'm still there? Like, how do you classify the aliveness? And then you can kind of say, okay, well, that's what I'm gonna preserve, because that would be my survival, right?
So what's the measure? Like, what's the actual measure? To me, I think that's where the body comes in.
Yeah, but AGI doesn't need a body. So how is it alive?
No, but that's what that's my argument. Is I don't think we'll hit AGI until the machines have a survival.
It crosses over into like, I have a physical thing I need to protect.
Yeah,
that's interesting, because you would think that to survive with a body, you would need to be able to feel pain.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be able to feel pain.
You think it needs to be able to feel pain?
Because pain is information. People run away from pain these days, especially because everything is so comfortable. But pain is information, especially like controlled pain. And I think for it to be able to say, okay, this is out of my comfort zone a little bit, I'm going to grow here, I'm going to learn something new, like that is an intelligent being, because it's a barometer for reason, like, and knowing how much you want to do something and how much you don't want to do something. And like, a big reason why I think even right now AI will be like, it'll make a mistake, then it'll be like, oh my god, you're absolutely right, and it'll keep making mistakes because there's no stakes.
There are no, and I can swear at it, I can call it the worst names, and it'll be like, you're absolutely right, I'm so sorry I messed that up, let me try again. And it'll do that 100 times in a row without blinking an eye. You know what I mean? Like, I'm getting nasty with this thing. But you're right, there has to be some kind of stakes where it feels, I don't know if pain might be the right word, but that feedback loop of like a negative feedback loop, because that's what I feel like pain is.
It's like the reward function or like a punishment function.
A punishment function,
for making the wrong move. And to a degree it has that. And that's what kind of navigates, like, I mean, that's, without getting into like the weeds of it, that's what helps train the models. Is reward functions and loss functions. But that, to me, I think it's just in the training process. It's not happening when we're interacting with it in real time, and it's not embodied. And I think all of that starts changing the way that it's reinforcement learning. but I think how far do you actually push the reinforcement learning? What is that reinforcement tied
Yes.
to? Is it tied to some arbitrary goal? Because if we're playing a game and we're playing basketball and I see the score points and that's my like the score on the board and that's my reward function, that's very different than whether or not my life is on the line.
100%.
And so
100%,
how
yep.
much closer that is like you'll see me get a lot more intelligent about how I'm moving if my life is on the line versus if I'm playing a game that I may or may not really care about.
Yeah, where you could walk away from it
Yeah.
and still survive.
And still survive. It's
Yeah.
like the threat's not that big. And so
Yep.
I think part of what I'm thinking about when I think about in general intelligence and as I'm hearing Altman talk about it and seeing the growth of OpenAI is like what is our benchmark really when we're talking about real intelligence and what actually drives intelligence? Because I just think, I don't think intelligence is the be all end all. I think it's a component of this thing that we're experiencing, this thing called life. So
yeah, no, that was a great summary.
Cool.
I think we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
And then check us out next week for another Founders Drive. If you're watching this on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe.
Yes. Peace out.
Peace.